What is going on, Headliner Nation? It's time again to talk some injuries with our favorite doctor, Dr. Ethan Turner, where we're breaking down some week 2 injury updates. Everybody and their mother, Ethan, is hurt in the NFL at this point. I mean, it's bad enough that we didn't have much of an offseason. Now some of these big names are starting to fall, and a lot of people are already having to make some difficult choices with their newly drafted rosters.
Yeah, that's always a bummer. Week 1 injuries are the worst, and sadly, we didn't make it through without some really big names going down. So that's why I'm here, man. We got to talk about them. We can't just ignore the injuries. We have to go in depth on these. So let's get at it.
Yep, absolutely. The first guy we're going to talk about is probably one of the biggest names of the week, and a lot of people are already feeling some early season depression because of Michael Thomas going down. He was already having a rough week 1 anyway against Tampa Bay, and now there's word coming out he's going to miss a few weeks. What's your thoughts on Michael Thomas?
Yeah, Thomas, this one was a little scary. If you watch the video, he basically gets caught, guys getting tackled, and his ankle gets caught up. Michael Thomas's ankle gets caught up under him. We're looking at a high ankle sprain. Initially, they weren't really sure if this was going to be a bad deal. It could have been worse. I tried to point out, he was lucky that he got his ankle out from under the player that landed on him. Had he not been able to pull it out, we may have been looking at a fracture and ended season. Instead, we're looking at a high ankle sprain. They weren't giving a grade, but they said it was more serious than they thought. So we're thinking grade 2, potentially grade 3. If you want more info on ankle sprains, we did do a video about this back in the summer. I highly encourage you to go look at that video to get some of the anatomy and things. But for Thomas, we're looking at 3 to 6 weeks is kind of the timeline. But the thing we have to know is that the team does have a week 6 bye. And so they could potentially, if he is not ready, hold him out all the way until week 7, which is obviously worst case scenario. I tend to find that star players, the superstars, they tend to come back faster than what we expect. Now, from a production standpoint, I'm definitely concerned, but you're looking at least 3 weeks. They haven't officially ruled him on the short-term IR, which is encouraging. That means that they're pretty sure that he could make it back by that 3-week mark. And, worst case, we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks. I think that this is one where you're probably not going to see peak Michael Thomas again until after the bye week.
That's sad. I mean, we need some more positive news, Ethan. I mean, this is depressing.
I mean, you did bring me on for just like the worst topic.
I know. Which is you're here for just bad news.
This is the worst part about being an injury analyst is just like nobody ever wants to hear about my updates because they're always sad.
They're always sad, but hey, that was a good point though about the ankle video we did earlier in the summer. I'm going to put a link to that down below in the description. I remember we talked about low ankle sprains versus high ankle sprains, so a lot of great information in that video. What about big play Kenny Golladay? That's another wide receiver that we were high on here this offseason, and Matthew Stafford could definitely use him. What's your thoughts on Kenny G?
Yeah, Golladay was an injury that came after we recorded last week's video. He's dealing with a hamstring strain. He didn't practice this Wednesday. That is not ideal. We want to see guys getting practice in. The fact that he's not practicing yet is concerning. I personally don't think he's going to play this week, and it sucks. I want Kenny Golladay back as much as anybody because I have so many spots where I need Kenny Golladay to be healthy. But I think they're going to be cautious with him. I think they're going to wait one more week before they bring him back. And honestly, as much as we're upset about losing him for the first 2 weeks, we have to think big picture here. We don't want this to become an issue where that nags throughout the year. I would rather them be cautious now so that we have Kenny Golladay healthy for the main part of the fantasy season.
What about Chris Godwin? I mean, we're talking about all these big name guys, a lot of wide receivers here on this list. Chris Godwin is somebody who's starting to get a little bit of concern here. Do you think he's in any jeopardy of missing this week also?
I think there's definitely a case to be made that he could miss this week. Godwin is dealing with a concussion. This is one where I always say that the end of the game injuries are the ones you don't hear about until basically the practices come out and you realize like, oh, that dude's hurt. When did he get hurt? I don't know if it's because we don't pay attention to the end of games as much or what, but he took it helmet to helmet. He does have a concussion. He's in concussion protocol, and this is where it gets tricky. Concussion protocol really is a case-by-case basis. And so he is not practicing yet. He will not be allowed to practice until he clears concussion protocol. But the good news is if he does manage to clear concussion protocol and get any practice in, there's a pretty high chance that he plays. And most of the time, coming off of a concussion, players are not as likely to have their performance impacted. So while it does suck that he's in concussion protocol and there is a non-zero chance that he misses this week, once he returns, you don't have to be worried about starting him. He should be okay.
Yep, as long as he gets some practice in, we can fire up Chris Godwin. What about Courtland Sutton? Another name, another wide receiver. Drew Lock is in some need. He took care of Noah Fant this past week. Noah Fant looked pretty good. Jerry Jeudy had struggle catching the ball. He needs himself some Courtland Sutton. What do you think about Courtland Sutton?
Sutton's dealing with an AC joint sprain, another injury that came after we recorded last week's video. I did try to update as many people as possible in the comments, but sometimes people miss it or I miss it. I was gone all this weekend with school continuing education. So that's the one part of that sucks about being a doctor is I have to keep doing education. But Sutton's dealing with an AC joint sprain, which is basically the joint where your clavicle attaches to your acromion or the point of your shoulder. There's a joint right here that is sprained. He is limited in practice. I think he's going to end up being a game time decision, but I do expect him to play on Sunday. That's my prediction for him. We'll see if it plays out. We should know before the game with some type of I'm struggling with words.
Certainty.
We should know with some type of certainty if he's going to play or not.
Perfect. Yeah, he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on and make sure. I'm going to say this now before I forget and it gets too late in the video. Follow us on Twitter because I will always retweet whatever Ethan puts out, and Ethan is constantly putting out injury updates for players. So if you want some of those injury updates as they're coming out, make sure you follow both of us on Twitter because we're both putting it out there as soon as we absolutely get it. What about James Conner? The dude didn't even make it 1 week, Ethan. We're always worried about the concerns with James Conner, and he looked great this offseason, looked like he was in great shape and couldn't even make it through week 1.
Yeah, this is the bummer when you talk about players that have a history of getting hurt. You tend to find that they keep getting hurt. He's dealing with a low ankle sprain, a little bit different from what Michael Thomas is dealing with. The thing about the low ankle sprain we talked about in the video, which is linked below, you can tape up a low ankle sprain. And so I do think he's going to play in some capacity this week, but I would not be anywhere close to confident in him starting. I think you need to sit him. Benny Snell is going to get more work. He was very competent this week, number 1 waiver wire ad in a lot of leagues. And so just know that if Conner does play, he is not starting in any fantasy rosters.
Yeah, no, too much concern there. All right. Well, there's a laundry list of names, and we could go through each one of them like this, and the video would be like 74 minutes long. So how about I put you on the spot a little bit? Let me rapid fire through some names, and you can give me your quick analysis on each person and see where they're headed here for week 2. You up for it?
Hit me.
Hit you with it, right?
Hit me.
What about a name a lot of people want? Miles Sanders.
Sanders is dealing with a hamstring strain. He was a late scratch last week. I think he was close to playing. I do expect him back this week, and I think you can fire him up. He should be good to go. Jarvis
Landry.
Landry's dealing with some hip soreness. Remember, he had a labral tear that he got fixed over the offseason in that hip. This is expected. He's going to probably be on the injury report for most of the season with just basically time off because of this hip. I expect him to play.
What about John Brown?
John Brown's dealing with a foot injury. This one's kind of tricky. I don't know a whole lot about it yet. The info is not super out there yet on what exactly he's dealing with. He is not practicing. I do think that this could be one where he sits. I'm going to predict that John Brown's going to sit this week. The team has a pretty easy matchup against the Dolphins. I don't think they're going to need him.
What fantasy Bigfoot Devontae Parker?
Yeah, Parker on the other side here, he has been limited. He's dealing with a hamstring strain as well. A lot of hamstrings this first week. He is practicing in full pads, even though he's limited. I expect another rough outing for him. I would not be starting him. I do expect him to play, but he gets Tre'Davious White, and that's never going to be a good time. Definitely need to sit him, but just know that the hamstring is getting better each week.
Perfect. What about Philip Lindsay?
Lindsay's dealing with turf toe, basically a sprain of the big toe. We're expecting him to miss about 2 weeks, maybe longer. You gotta be ready to fire up Melvin Gordon this week. I think that he's going to carry the majority of the load for the team. Maybe if you want to pivot to Royce Freeman, I don't hate that, but Melvin Gordon's going to be the guy.
What about Deontay Johnson of the Steelers?
Yeah, Johnson is dealing with a foot/toe injury. He's not practicing on Wednesday. This is not really something I'm worried about. They played on Monday night. They were traveling, so this is probably a scheduled rest day for most of these players. Juju Smith-Schuster, same kind of deal. He's dealing with a knee injury. He also didn't practice on Wednesday. I don't think there's going to be any problem with these two starting.
What about the Duke Johnson?
Duke Johnson's dealing with an ankle sprain. He did get a limited practice in on Wednesday, which is good to see. Again, low ankle sprains. You're expecting them to tape it up. I think he's going to be able to play, but I do think that David Johnson is going to get the majority of the work again this week.
Saving the best for last. What about Mike Evans?
Evans is dealing with a hamstring strain. He was a decoy this week. They had him out there. He did score a touchdown, but still under 10 fantasy points and half PPR. So he wasn't really at full Mike Evans capacity. I expect a bit more usage this week, but I expect them to be very cautious with him practicing. So don't be surprised if he's limited or even misses a couple practices this week. That's just par for the course with these hamstring injuries. There's no reason to push it until basically game day.
Yeah, perfect. And this is kind of to be expected somewhat, right? We talked about this all summer. It's just going to be one of those years with the lack of off-season programs. There was this possibility for a lot of early season injuries, and that's exactly what's happening. That's why we, preach to people in the offseason, hey, we may want some deeper benches in a lot of your leagues this year because players are going to be dealing with things, and you can already tell week 2, and there are a lot of big names on this list already. And maybe you have questions on other players that we don't touch on in this video. Leave them down below in the comment section. We'll do our best to get you as many answers as we possibly can. Plus, do not forget, if nothing else, go follow Ethan on Twitter at eTurnerFF_PT, and he's constantly tweeting about updates to players, their injuries, their practice reports, what to expect, whether you take that risk or not. That's what you need. That's the information you want to set your fantasy football lineups. Well, it's only week 2, Ethan, and I feel like I'm kind of overworking you on players already. So hopefully it gets better for all of us, and you can start delivering more good news on a weekly basis.
I hope so. I always say to deliver good news as an injury analyst, people have to get hurt first and come back. So sadly, this is just part of football. People get hurt, but we got you covered all year here. This is definitely the place to be when you want to know about injuries and updates. I'm going to be doing my best in the comments. Patreon is the best way to get direct access to me on start-sit decisions when injuries come up. Our Patreon is lit right now. You want to be a part of Headliner Nation on Patreon. So definitely go join, get direct access to me, get direct access to Jake. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got our Discord all fired up, ready to go with an injury channel dedicated to Ethan and injuries. So you got all the information right there at your fingertips. Very well said. Well, we appreciate the support. We are right around the corner to 100,000 subscribers, Ethan. If you enjoy fantasy football, if you enjoy the content, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We got you covered all year long. We greatly appreciate the support. And before Ethan brings down the house, I'm going to say goodbye, and hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week.